So you want to own a casino. The floor never closes. The edge belongs to you by law. Every table running, every slot spinning, money flowing mathematically to the house every single hour. The Las Vegas Strip pulled $7.6 billion in gaming revenue last year alone. Here's the thing. The math is real. The business is a different problem entirely. Before anything else, casino is doing a lot of work in one word. A tribal gaming hall in Connecticut operates under a federal compact, pays no state gaming taxes, and runs on an entirely different financial logic than anything on the Strip. A regional riverboat in Missouri is fighting for locals against 3 competitors within 40 minutes. Neither of those is what we're talking about. We're talking about a Las Vegas Strip megaresort, Bellagio tier, Cosmopolitan tier, a property where the casino floor is actually the smallest revenue-generating square footage in the building. Because here's what a Strip megaresort actually is: a hotel, a convention center, a restaurant collection, a nightclub portfolio, a retail corridor that happens to have a casino attached. And the casino's job is not to be the profit engine. Its job is to be the reason the hotel charges $400 a night on a Tuesday instead of $180. The gaming floor is the marketing department for everything else. And marketing departments have costs. The land alone will clarify things fast. A Strip-adjacent parcel, not the premium address, just adjacent, runs between $30 million and $60 million an acre. The Wynn Las Vegas site cost roughly $270 million just for the dirt before a single foundation was poured. Then construction. A full-scale Strip resort built from the ground up today runs somewhere between $3 billion and $5 billion before you've hired anyone, stocked a bar, or dealt one hand of blackjack. The Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas cost its original developers $4 billion to build, a number worth keeping in mind, and it opened in 2010 without a casino operator attached to the building. $4 billion, no operator, opening into the worst recession the Strip had seen in 30 years. But even if you raise the capital, even if construction comes in on budget, which it almost never does, there's a cost layer that doesn't appear on any pro forma until after you've signed. It's the union contract structure. Every major Strip property is staffed under collective bargaining agreements with the Culinary Workers Union Local 226, which represents roughly 60,000 workers across Las Vegas. Those agreements lock in wage escalators, benefit structures, and work rule provisions, minimum staffing ratios, mandatory break rotations, overtime triggers that make your labor cost not a variable you manage, but a floor you're standing on. When MGM Resorts renegotiated its culinary contract in 2023, the settlement added hundreds of millions in committed wage increases over 5 years. You don't discover this on day 1. You discover it in year 2, when the labor line won't move the way you modeled it, and it never will. So what does the machine actually produce? Start with gaming. On the Strip, a mature casino floor, slots, tables, sports betting, poker, generates between $400 and $900 per square foot per year. The Bellagio's gaming floor has historically produced north of $600 million annually from that one line alone. Slots account for roughly 65 to 70% of gaming revenue on most floors. The hold percentage on a slot machine runs between 7 and 12%, and the machine never sleeps, never needs a union break, never runs hot in the way a person can. Table games carry a lower theoretical hold, around 14 to 20% on blackjack, higher on baccarat. But the variance on tables is something we'll come back to. Layer 2 is hotel revenue. The Bellagio has 3,933 rooms, at an average daily rate of $350 on a moderate night and occupancy above 90%, which Strip properties routinely maintain. That's over $450 million a year from rooms before you've sold one cocktail. And occupancy is the number that looks the safest on the spreadsheet right up until it isn't. The Lucky Dragon Las Vegas, a boutique resort that opened in 2016 targeting Asian American gamblers with an authentically designed property, was running hotel occupancy in the low 50s within a year of opening because it had the wrong location for the customers it was chasing and the wrong scale for the strip tourists passing it by. It closed in 2018. Occupancy is not the same thing as revenue per occupied room, and revenue per occupied room is not the same thing as the customer you actually need in that room. Layer 3 is food, beverage, and entertainment. A single high-end restaurant in a strip property can clear $20 to $40 million in annual revenue. Multiply that across 6 or 8 outlets. Add a nightclub doing $50 million in a good year. Add a theater or arena moving 200,000 tickets annually, and the revenue line rivals gaming itself at the largest properties. Layer 4, the one almost nobody models ahead of time, is sports betting. Nevada sports betting generated over $900 million in revenue across the state in a recent full year, and a strip megaresort with a premium sportsbook. Floor space, screens, betting windows, the whole theater of it. Draws a customer who sits there for 6 hours, orders food, orders drinks, and often plays the casino floor afterward. The sportsbook margin is thin, around 5 to 7%, but the ancillary spend around it is why MGM and Caesars have each invested tens of millions in building sportsbooks that feel like arenas. Layer 5, and this is the one most buyers genuinely undercount, is convention and meeting revenue. The MGM Grand has 300,000 square feet of convention space. Groups book years in advance at $150 to $300 per square foot for the event space alone, and they fill hotel rooms at full rack rate during the slowest weeks of the year, the exact weeks when leisure travelers stay home. Convention revenue is not a bonus line. It's the mechanism that makes a seasonal business run 12 months a year. Now the costs that sit against all of that. Nevada gaming taxes are tiered. Properties generating over $134,000 a month in gaming revenue, every strip property, every single month, pay 6.75% of gross gaming revenue to the state. Not net, not margin, gross, before expenses. At $600 million in gaming revenue, that's over $40 million straight off the top, before federal taxes on the EBITDA underneath. Labor on a full mega resort runs between 30 and 40% of total revenue. At a property doing $3 billion a year, that's up to $1.2 billion in labor cost before a single chip is racked. Add utilities. A strip resort burns through roughly $50 to $80 million in energy annually, and debt service on construction financing, and the operating cushion gets narrow fast. Then there's the comp structure. A player betting $10,000 a hand at a table gets a complimentary villa suite, airfare reimbursement, meals, bottle service, front row seats to whatever's playing that weekend, and all of that is carried as an operating expense against the theoretical revenue that player is supposed to generate. At Caesars, the total value of complimentaries issued in a single year has historically run into the hundreds of millions. This is not generosity. It's a calculated bet that the comped player's theoretical loss over the course of the stay exceeds what you spent to get them there. Usually it does. When it doesn't, you just spent $80,000 hosting someone who ran well and left even. But the genuinely fragile point isn't any of those costs. It's baccarat. High roller baccarat. The game of choice for international VIPs. Players betting $500,000 a hand. Flown in on private jets and comped into $25,000 a night villas. Has a house edge of roughly 1.06% on the banker bet. 1%. The thinnest edge in the building. Held against the players the casino needs most desperately to keep coming back. When 4 or 5 of those players run hot in the same month, and pure probability guarantees this will happen, repeatedly, across any long enough timeline, the property can post a gaming loss for that period against its theoretical win. Dana White has described single sessions at the Palms, where he was up $7 million before breakfast. Multiply that profile across a dozen players, and the mathematical certainty you thought you were buying just became a very difficult quarterly call. Collected revenue and theoretical revenue are not the same number. The gap between them is where strip finances actually live. That cosmopolitan figure, $4 billion, deserves its full story. Deutsche Bank funded the original development starting around 2004 on a bet that a boutique-style design-forward resort aimed at a younger, hipper demographic could compete on a strip dominated by Wynn and MGM. Construction ran straight through the financial crisis. Deutsche Bank, now holding a $4 billion real estate project, in the middle of the worst credit collapse in 80 years, could not find a buyer. So they opened the property themselves in 2010, a German bank running a Las Vegas casino because the alternative was worse. The Cosmopolitan spent 5 years generating real revenue, winning design awards, becoming genuinely beloved, and losing money at the ownership level because the debt structure underneath it was built for a world that no longer existed. Blackstone bought it in 2014 for $1.73 billion. Deutsche Bank lost somewhere north of $2 billion on a building that was actually good. The product worked. The balance sheet didn't. Now look at a failure that came from the opposite problem. Too much debt. But the debt was the whole strategy. The Trump Taj Mahal opened in Atlantic City in 1990 as the largest casino in the world at the time, financed with roughly $675 million in junk bonds at interest rates above 14%. The Taj needed to generate approximately $1.3 million per day in revenue just to cover its interest payments alone, before a single employee was paid, before a single utility bill, before any maintenance on a building that large and that expensive to operate. In its first full year, it did not hit that number. It filed for bankruptcy in 1991, less than a year after opening, while still reporting hundreds of millions in gross gaming revenue. The casino was not failing. The capital structure was failing, and taking the casino with it. Now add a third shape entirely. Revel Atlantic City opened in 2012 after a $2.4 billion build, conceived as a non-smoking casino in a market where Atlantic City's core customer was driving 3 hours from New Jersey specifically to do the things they couldn't do at home. Revel posted hotel occupancy above 70% in its first year, a number that sounds healthy in isolation, but its gaming revenue per visitor ran roughly 40% below what properties down the boardwalk were collecting because the guests Revel attracted weren't there to gamble. It filed for bankruptcy twice before closing permanently in 2014, less than 3 years after opening. 3 properties, 3 completely different causes of death. The Cosmopolitan, great product, wrong debt structure on the wrong timeline. The Trump Taj, right market, lethal interest burden from day one. Revel, the wrong customer invited into a very expensive room. What kills the owner is almost never the thing the owner was watching for. Here's where the money actually ends up. Las Vegas Sands, Sheldon Adelson's company, built its empire not by owning casinos in the traditional sense, but by understanding that the real estate under a casino is worth more separated from the operating license than bundled with it. In Macau, the world's largest gaming market by revenue, which generated roughly $27 billion in gross gaming revenue in its pre-COVID peak year, making it nearly 4 times the size of the entire Las Vegas Strip, Sands structured its operating assets to generate cash without the kind of debt load that buried the Cosmopolitan. Adelson's Venetian Macau alone cost over $2 billion to build and generated revenues that justified the entire Macau bet within a few years. In the United States, the model that actually generates reliable returns is the REIT structure. A REIT, a real estate investment trust, owns property and must return at least 90% of its taxable income to shareholders, which earns it favorable tax treatment in exchange. VC Properties owns the real estate under Caesars Palace, the Venetian, MGM Grand, and more than 50 other gaming properties. It collects rent whether the tables run hot or cold. The operating company absorbs all the casino volatility. VC holds 15 to 20-year leases with annual rent escalators baked into every contract. In 2023, VC collected roughly $3.6 billion in rental revenue on a portfolio it didn't have to staff, manage, or operate. The Palms, Las Vegas, which the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians purchased in 2021 for $650 million and subsequently renovated for another $200 million plus, is an example of the opposite model. An operator that owns both the real estate and the casino license outright, taking all the upside and all the volatility simultaneously. The house edge everyone fantasizes about belongs to the operator. The rent escalator belongs to whoever thought to separate the two. One of them sleeps better during a bad baccarat month. So what does owning one of these actually produce? A realistic good year on a well-run mid-strip megaresort, Borgata-level execution, not Bellagio anomaly, looks something like this. $800 million in total revenue, EBITDA margin around 30%, $240 million before debt service. Against $2 billion in construction financing at a blended rate of 6%, you're servicing $120 million a year. That leaves $120 million in free cash on a $3 billion asset. A 4% cash return before you've priced in the year the whales run hot, the year a recession cuts leisure travel, or the year a new competitor opens 2 blocks down and takes your conventioneers. A realistic bad year. Ask Atlantic City circa 2013, when 6 casinos were competing for a regional market that supported 3, is a year where gaming revenue drops 20%. The labor floor doesn't move an inch, and the debt service doesn't care about any of that. That year, your $120 million cushion becomes a $40 million shortfall. And here's the number that almost nobody talks about honestly: the reinvestment cycle. A strip megaresort has to spend roughly $150 to $250 million every 7 to 10 years on a full renovation. New rooms, new restaurants, new public spaces. Because the guests who chose your property in 2015 are choosing the property that looks like 2025 in 2025. The Bellagio spent over $100 million renovating its hotel tower rooms alone in a recent cycle. That capital expenditure doesn't show up in your original pro forma. It shows up when the alternative is watching your competitors' freshly renovated rooms take your occupancy. What determines which version of this year you're living? One thing mostly: whether you bought the right asset at the right basis with the right debt structure before the market told you which kind of year it had decided to be. The math doesn't lie. The timing does. A casino isn't a money machine. It's a guaranteed revenue stream attached to a hospitality business sitting on top of a real estate bet. Remember how owning one felt at the very start? The edge, the floor never closing, math flowing to the house every hour? All of that is still true. What's also true is that the Cosmopolitan was genuinely beloved and still cost its owners $2 billion. The Trump Taj was the biggest casino in the world and still couldn't cover its interest payments. Revel had guests. It just had the wrong ones. The house always wins the math. It doesn't always win the year. The edge is real. Everything else is a bet.